Let us now continue with agenda item 7, program budget matters. Relevant documents are showing on the screen. Under this agenda, the regional committee will be presented with: first, a high-level summary and key messages from program budget 2022-2023, an update as of 15th of September 2024 for program budget 2024-2025, and the development process with the current status for program budget 2026-2027. And second, an update on the investment round. This session will have two parts separately by segment for questions and answers. The first part will focus on program budget 2022-2023 results report, an update of the program budget 2024-2025 implementation, and program budget 2026-2027 planning. The second part will focus on the WHO investment round. With this, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Corinne Capuano, Executive Director. Corinne, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you on behalf of EU, Czechia, Monaco, and the region. You already brought forward some of the PB matters. So thanks for your enthusiasm with program budget matters. So as mentioned by the chair, this session is organized in two parts, and I'm not going to repeat. So the second part will be focusing on the investment round, and the first part on the three program budgets. So let's start with program budget 22-23, and by putting it into the context of a sustained growth over the last biennia. In the base segment, we have seen an increase in the approved budget and funds available from 242.3 million in PB 18-19 to 312.6 million for the last program budget. In the emergency segment, funds available grew from 85.6 million in PB 18-19 to 425.8 million in the last PB. This segment, entirely funded from voluntary contribution, surpassed the base budget. Our agile modus operandi and dual-track approach enabled WHO Europe to rapidly scale up operation and workforce capacity, as was mentioned earlier by David, leading Euro to an increased implementation both in base and emergency segment over the last biennia. However, this high-level view hides two facts. Number one, while the flexible funds grew in absolute terms, it became a smaller percentage of the total. Second, we have been observing a reduction trend in thematic funds. Before moving to the next slide, I'd like to point out that these trends in the base segment continue in the current biennium 24-25, but funds available under the emergency segment are dropping in the current biennium. This growth of program budget over the last biennia was accompanied by an increased shift of budget towards country offices from 37% of the budget allocated to country offices in PB 18-19 to 40% in the last biennium and 48% in the current biennium as of June 2024. This slide mirrors the slide shown earlier by David on the increased shift of workforce towards country offices. Now, let's look at the funding by strategic priority. When looking a level down into the base budget, we can see a heavy reliance on specified voluntary contributions, the blue section of the bars, which per definition are not flexible. Meanwhile, important strategic priorities remained underfunded, and they were mentioned by some of you earlier. As some of these funds decline, the urgency to address the persistent challenges of limited, flexible, and predictable resources and to prioritize our work jointly sharpens. Efforts to increase sustainable financing of strategic priority areas such as preparedness and response to emergencies and prevention and control of NCD should also be intensified as we move forward. And this brings me to the current program budget 24-25. Regarding the current PB, due to WHO's biennial budgetary cycle, this year's accountability report is based on the implementation during the first 6 months of the biennium, from 1st January to 30 June 2024. However, to be as up-to-date as possible, today we are providing an update as of 15 September 24. WHO Europe, represented by the bar on top of this slide, maintains its second rank among WHO major offices, just behind headquarters in base segment funding, and third in base budget utilization, behind headquarters and WHO Southeast Asia. Because of our high level of funding, our flexible funds as a percentage of the total are smaller than other major offices. As a result, the level of flexibility is smaller too. On this slide and the next one, the areas in plain color available funds, while the dotted areas are funds in the pipeline. Green represents flexible funds and blue specified funding. In the base segment of the total available of 312.9 million in cash, only 32% is flexible funding, demonstrating again the limited flexibility and therefore inability to distribute equitably. In addition, this high-level view shows that 71% of our allocated budget for the base segment is funded, has an alignment of available funds and needs for achieving PB results, as we will see in the next slide. Here we can see the funding by outcome in the base segment using the same funding as in the previous slide. Some technical areas will have more than what they had planned for, while others do not have sufficient funds and will not have with current projections. Allow me to highlight just one, and it was actually mentioned earlier by Czechia. Output 1.3, access to essential medicine, an integral component of universal health coverage. Yet, this area remains chronically underfunded. The recently established Novel Medicine Platform is a unique multi-stakeholder regional collaboration to improve access to novel medicines. It already resulted in 10 concrete proposals agreed by stakeholders. While it is envisioned as a powerful tool for policymakers, we now need all stakeholders to step forward and contribute financially to support this initially sustainably. Such technical areas, together with enabling services, will be highly dependent on allocation of flexible funds throughout the biennium. In the past, technical divisions and country offices covered part of the salaries from thematic funds, which are now not available at the same level as in the previous biennia. While we do have more core flexible funds, what we call the CFF, than in the previous biennium, we have about 50% less thematic flexible funds, the TFF. This decrease in thematic flexible funds cannot be offset by the increase in core flexible fund, and this is the main challenge of the current biennium. To end with program budget 22-23 and 24-25, here are a few key messages. Number one, over the past few years, we've tripled our voluntary contribution driven by global and regional emergencies and our proactive resource mobilization efforts. Two, our agile modus operandi and dual-track approach enabled WHO Europe to rapidly scale up operation and workforce capacity. Three, as some of these funds declined, the urgency to address the persistent challenges of limited flexible and predictable resources and to prioritize our work solidly and jointly sharpens. Efforts to increase sustainable financing of strategic priority areas, such as prevention and control of NCDs beyond 2025, should also be intensified. Four, tackling this requires strategic collaboration, innovation, and shared accountability between member states and WHO Europe. Five, we hope that Euro member states will support the proposed 20% increase in assessed contribution for PB 26-27 and increase thematic and other flexible funds for the European regions. Let's now turn to Programme Budget 26-27. And with your permission, Madam Chair, I would like to give the floor to my colleague here on my left, Imre Holo. You all know him, to update on the status of the development of this new programme budget. Over to you, Imre.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Can I have the clicker as well? Thank you.
You can.
Good afternoon. So I am going to talk about the draft proposed programme budget, and just to remind everyone that this is the first reading of the programme budget. It has been presented now to all the regional committees. The Euro one is the last regional committee. We are obviously listening to the guidance and directions that you give us. And based on this guidance, we're going to revise the proposed programme budget document, and we'll resubmit it to the Executive Board in January, late January, in Geneva. Before we will do that, there will be a presentation and an informal briefing to member states on what it is that we're going to present. And once the Executive Board discusses the draft proposed programme budget 26-27, it will go then to the World Health Assembly, again, with an opportunity to revise based on the guidance received from the Executive Board. So I just want to tell you that this is a long process, and in a way this is the first step of that longer journey where we are advocating and asking for your guidance. This programme budget is the first programme budget which is entirely based on the new GPW 14. It has a couple of new elements. One is that it incorporates lessons learned from GPW 13, and it has we have reviewed all the evaluations and other recommendations that came from the GPW 13, and we try to implement it as much as possible for reflecting it in the GPW 14. Building on, again, GPW 13, we would like to continue building trust and confidence in the programme budget, and particularly what we have received is that monitoring and indicators and the achievement of indicators, and to put indicators in the middle, is an important element of building trust and reporting, and hopefully you will see that we're doing that. And of course, resource allocation, that it needs to be more transparent and more democratic in a way, and clearly accountable. So that's also something that we're working on. And lastly, just like GPW 14, this document has also been much more consultative within the organization, where all the three levels of the organization, including country offices and heads of country offices, have been involved. What you don't see in the document currently is the work that's ongoing to be basically ready for the next version of the programme budget. And this is working on the output statement, working on the output scopes, and particularly working on the output indicators with baselines and targets to be presented for the next version of the programme budget document. And this is something that is a considerable improvement compared to GPW 13, because if you remember, only the last budget in 24-25 of the GPW 13 contained output indicators with baselines and targets. So we really hope that that will be available already now. As before, the programme budget is based on a rigorous prioritization process, which happened at the country level, led by our heads of country offices. It's important to note that when countries prioritize work with the organization. It does not necessarily mean these are the priorities of the country. These are the priority areas where the country would like WHO's technical assistance. So there could be other priorities in the country where maybe another organization or maybe internal resources can address those issues. Corinne will talk about the outcome of the Euro prioritization. I just want to say that we had very clear 5 areas that came out from the global prioritization. One are the risk factors for NCDs and communicable diseases. Second is primary health care for UHC. Third is access to quality services for main diseases and conditions. Fourth, preparedness for health emergencies. And lastly, health and workforce. So if you see that, these 5 areas came out quite strongly in the prioritization process globally. In terms of the budget and budget figures, as you know, there was a financial envelope that was presented together with GPW 14. That financial envelope established the funding requirement or financing requirement for the work between 25 and 28, and that came to $11.1 billion. And basically what we have done is that we translated the requirements for 26-27 of that GPW 14 envelope for program budget 26-27, and this has resulted in that 5.5 billion proposed amount that you have in front of you for the base segment of the budget. This presents an 11% increase compared to 24-25, and you can see on the right-hand side the main areas where this increase is going to be allocated to or spent on. The majority, 387 million, is to strengthen country offices, 100 million for strengthening accountability. This is all the work that's also happening in Euro and PRSCH, but also on the other side, so HR, investigation, etc., that is also important elements of this work. And lastly, 75 million to strengthen data, innovation, and science. So this is behind the 550 million increase that we are presenting to you for the base segment. If you read the document, in the document we are posing a question on 2 scenarios, and these budget scenarios relate to the emergency and operations segment of the total program budget. So until now, I talked about the base program budget, and the scenarios relate only to the emergency operations and the appeals segment. As you have seen it also from Corinne's presentation, there's been a very sharp increase in the past couple of years on emergency and on emergency operations, primarily related to COVID, but also to other outbreaks that we have been dealing with in the past couple of years. We used a 1 billion planned amount to have some sort of a number in the program budget as a planned cost for these emergencies, but in reality, the actual spending was much closer to 3 billion. And as a result, when we are reporting our implementation and financing, it seems like we're over-financed and over-implemented when you're looking at the overall amount and compare it to that 1 billion. It's important that this 1 billion amount is not a limitation for anything. It's not like on the base budget part, the base budget figure. It is purely really a planning amount, and the real expenditures can be incurred based on the needs as the emergencies come about. So the 2 scenarios that we're presenting to you is to stay with the same old 1 billion with the potential risk that we're going to be over-implementing in brackets and over-financing, or try to come up with a more realistic planned amount, which is 2.8 billion, based on this year's emergency appeals, that would probably be closer to the real needs. This is, again, I just would like to emphasize, is more of an accounting and reporting issue rather than an authorization for the budget. In terms of the base segment and how the base segment's budget is proposed to be distributed, you will see that there's the smallest increase is in headquarters, which is very much in line with the recent developments that we really try to emphasize the increase and the budget on the regions and particularly on the country offices. And you see that there's a quite substantial increase of 50% in the European region. Maybe I'll skip this one and I'll just come to the question of the financing of the program budget. And I would like to start with this photo, which is a photo from when we had the negotiations on the working group on sustainable financing. And right before the final landmark decision was made, there was a last-minute gathering around the text editor to try to find a compromise text. And shortly after this photo was taken, a landmark recommendation and decision was made at the World Health Assembly, at that time proposed to the World Health Assembly to increase the assessed contribution of the World Health Organization to reach 50% of the 22-23 budget. And some of you have been there in these negotiations. I think we spent close to 2 years on getting to that fundamental decision. What this decision has done was it set the end goal of where we're going, which is 50% of the 22-23 budget. It had set the AC increase for 24-25, which was 20%, but it did not set the other stations of this journey, how to reach that 50%, and particularly what would be the AC increase that we would need for 26-27. So what we have done with my colleagues, we looked at this decision and tried to apply the least pain, so to say, that one can do. If you remember, the actual decision did not specify it's 28-29 by which we have to reach the 50% or 30-31. So we have our recommendation to take the 30-31 timeline to give a little bit more time for this. And then we looked at realistically possible in terms of AC increases step by step to reach without having any huge increase in any one particular year or biennium. And then within that, we try to come up with the limit that we can propose for 26-27, given all the financial constraints that everybody is facing. And that's how we came with the proposal of 20%, which is 229.6 million. And the proposed program budget 26-27 is now based on that assumption that there's going to be an increase of the assessed contribution of 20% going into that. It's important to know and to recall that the decision on the next AC increase happens together with the appropriation resolution of the program budget. So it will be in May 25 when you will decide on the program budget and on the actual eventual AC increase available for 26-27. And with that, I just would like to propose 3 questions for your consideration. One is that, are you in agreement with the draft program budget presented and with the emphasis and priorities presented in the budget? Which of the 2 scenarios for the emergency segment you would propose or you would support us to present for the executive board, and how would you like to move forward with the SS contribution. And with that, Madam Chair, I would like to give back the floor to Corinne to talk about the Euro prioritization.
Thank you, Imre. Yes, so let's have a look at the temporary result of the prioritization process in our region. So this slide shows the 4 top priorities as a result of this exercise. First, as you can see, we have NCD risk factor, followed by primary healthcare, equity in access to high-quality services, and emergency preparedness. This is consistent with the global level, what Imre has just shown now. However, what's striking is that some of these high priorities are also those chronically underfunded. Let's take the example of NCD, the leading cause of mortality in the region. The identification of sustainable and predictable funding for this area of work remains an area of concern. This makes the point again for joint prioritization and joint accountability between the Secretariat and you, our member states. We'll need to hear what you want us to prioritize as we move forward. If the top 4 priorities for Euro are those on the screen, so how are we going to work together to ensure that they are prioritized and that we have the resources needed to achieve the expected impact? And actually, this brings us to one of the questions you may already have in mind. Following your renewed trust in our regional directors this morning, what's next? What will our next European programme of work look like? And no one is better placed than Dr. Hans Kluge to talk about it. With your indulgence, Madam Chair, I would like to give the floor to our regional director.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for your confidence this morning and granting me to know I did not take this for granted. As the last time, our work for 5 years should be guided by a European Programme of Work, the EPW, and this to be in line, as some of you mentioned already, with the GPW 14 and obviously the Sustainable Development Goals. From tomorrow, I will send a letter to all 53 Ministers of Health to ask to nominate a person of your trust with who we can work on the development of EPW2 over the next year. That would guarantee that the member states are both the guardians and the custodians of the EPW2 and really own it. The first time around, the EPW1, this was based on my marathon campaign to all 53 member states, so I had a good feel. Obviously, I continue to talk to all member states, but we would like to structure this input to be sure we do not oversee any topics. While the member states will be at the center of its development, we also propose to take health as a topic to our wider partnerships and to our own staff, so that we can harness a range of perspectives. The idea is not to start from the scratch, obviously, but jointly achieved in the past 5 years, and also on the talk to you yesterday in plenary. 70% continuity, 30% of innovation. Whatever will be the ultimate content of the EPW2, as a scientific organization, we will make sure it is informed by the latest evidence and measurable throughout its implementation without overburdening you. Now, please allow me to pass the word briefly to 2 members of my leadership team, whom I have asked to personally coordinate the EPW2 development process. Gondo Weiler, currently the Acting Regional Emergency Director, and Milita Jakob, Head of our Primary Healthcare Office in Almaty.
Thank you. Like I said, our ambition is that you will have EPW2 in front of you for adoption in exactly 1 year from now. So now that might sound like a long time, but considering our governing body schedule and the timelines for consultation, and hence we have, as we need to move fast, already started to sketch out a process that we can initiate with your agreement as soon as possible. And here you can see a first overview. Now, the slide, but most important on this slide is that it shows how the development of EPW2 and the program budget 2027 that we just talked about are closely aligned. They are actually two sides of the same process, with EPW2 focusing on defining the medium strategic plan and program budget 26-27 applying the strategy to budgets and work plans for the first 2 years of its implementation. So both are synchronized so that once you have approved the plan, EPW2, end of October of next year, we have the budget's envelopes already ready and can finish the work planning in time for implementation as of 1st January 2026. And with this, I'll pass the floor over to Melita for some more details on the proposed process.
This slide that you're seeing in front of you, we will be starting the process with the inception in it. And throughout this process, we would like to ensure that you member states are co-steering and co-creating the program with us. And so for this, we propose to make the EPW2 development a standing item for all SCRC meetings and a central element for the work of the SCRC subgroups, especially the subgroup on WHO Europe's work with countries. We will continue to discuss and agree the details of the process in the remainder of the year. Early next year, we start the next phase, opening up the conversation into an inquiry phase, where we suggest to organize a number of hearings. These hearings will be open to a wide range of stakeholders to harness their perspectives. We believe that this phase is very important to generate ideas how to respond to some of the big trends that are shaping health in Europe in the next 5 years and beyond that. But even more importantly, these hearings will provide an opportunity for co-creation. In addition to member states, we will make sure to include our development partners, collaborating centers, academic and technical experts, and we will ensure opportunities for social participation by civil society and young people. This phase will be followed by a sequence of consultations around concrete consecutive drafts with EU member states, both individually and collectively, with a critical role for the focal points that Dr. Kluge mentioned. This will ensure full alignment of the EPW2 with your priorities and with those priorities you have already identified for GPW14. This will then be followed by operationalization of these priorities into concrete actions for WHO Europe, which are prioritized according to available funding. As we are entering our regional director's second mandate, we are very excited to go through this process hand in hand with you to ensure that we will have again an EPW that can indeed unite us for better health in Europe in order to leave no one behind. Thank you, Chair. This ends the first part of this item on program budget matters.
For your very clear and synthetic presentation of a very important item on our agenda. For this part, I will now open the floor for discussions. Are there any member states who would like to take the floor? Please raise your nameplate. Yeah. I see Hungary who will deliver on behalf of European Union. Please, Hungary.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, distinguished Regional Director, Excellencies. I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the European Union and its member states. We thank the Regional Office for the 2022-2023 Programme Budget Results Report and welcome the good alignment between the Regional Office strategic pillar and the EU and its member states' priorities and vision for the organisation. We commend the Regional Office for implementing a budget of over $670 million, a record high. We note that half of the budget was allocated to emergencies. However, we note with concern that inconsistent sustainability of funding and limited staff availability in some areas challenge the implementation of the programme budget during the biennium. We regret that several strategic outcomes remained underfunded, including key priorities, such as a health emergency preparedness and healthy environments affecting WHO's ability to support some of the planned interventions. We welcome the WHO Europe Accountability Report 2024 that is part of the drive for more efficient management and greater transparency. This report highlights the continued increase in staff members associated in particular with health emergencies in Ukraine, as well as the rebalancing of positions between regional and country offices as requested by member states. We also note the impact of health emergency situation on procurement trends. The financial sustainability of these developments will need to be ensured. We also welcome the completion of compulsory training on prevention and response to sexual misconduct by almost all WHO Europe staff. We encourage the Secretariat to continue and further report on its effort in this regard. We welcome the preliminary draft programme budget for 2026-2027 and commend its full alignment with the new GPW 14 priorities we agreed upon last WHA. We welcome the particular focus on addressing gender equality, equity, human rights and disability, inclusion and intervention. We hope that the PB 2026-2027 will allow the improvement, sustainable financing of WHO, less reliant on short-term consultancy contracts for regular staff function, a better prioritization to match needs and resources, including in the emergency segment, greater transparency in priority setting and allocation of resources to regional offices and accountability for their utilization, continuous assessment of the outcomes of actions undertaken. In a context where the organization is facing an ever-increasing number of complex and protracted health emergencies linked to climate change, extreme weather events, food insecurity, conflicts and displacement, we emphasize the importance for the organization to be able to maintain its ability to respond to crises through its emergency operation and appeals, such as through the contingency fund and emergencies. And we would like to once again to express our sincere gratitude to WHO and its staff for their tireless commitment and work in crisis response. The EU and its member states also support the inclusion in the core segment of budget lines for WHO capacity building, including the WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence in Berlin and the WHO Academy in Lyon. Moreover, the EU and its member states welcome the launch of WHO's first investment round covering the period of 2025-2028. It is an important step to enhance the predictability and flexibility of WHO's financial resources, to ensure a broader donor base in voluntary contribution, and to optimize the allocation of the organization resources in line with needs across the organization, including at country level, to make WHO fit for purpose in line with the reforms dedicated by member states and WHA 75, including the aspiration to reach a level of 50% assessed contribution of WHO's budget by the biennium of 2030-2031. We welcome its strategic alignment with the objective and budgetary framework set out in the GPW 14. We invite all member states to contribute to the success of the WHO investment round in order to support the WHO's mission. The World Health Summit held in Berlin on October 14 was an important milestone in this respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hungary. Now I'll give the floor to Norway, will be followed by Sweden.
Now, yeah. Chair, Regional Director, ladies and gentlemen, Norway is a strong supporter of WHO, and we want a normative, strong organization with convening power and an organization that has impact at country level. We appreciate the inclusive budgeting process led by the Secretariat. Norway strongly support and will follow up the increase in assessed contribution we collectively agreed on 2 years ago, and we are contributing to the investment round. We welcome the different measures you have taken to strengthen technical support to member states at the country level. This is where the impact is made. Nevertheless, budget allocation to countries must not lead to weakening the normative capacity in the headquarters. The budget document have over the last years been more understandable and accessible, and we welcome the budget portal and the information session the Secretariat organized for the member states. Nevertheless, we believe we could benefit from having less text and more tables and figures. As EB members and PBAC chair, we will do our best to make the reporting even more clear and understandable, so we see where resources are spent, on what and with which result. This creates transparency, which is needed both related to the investment round and the increase in assessed contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. Sweden, to be followed by United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. Sweden aligns fully with the statement delivered by Hungary on behalf of the European Union and its member states. And Sweden welcomes the transparency in the program budget preparations, and we take note of the 2 scenarios outlined in the document EUR RC7417. We are studying the proposal carefully, and this first debate within our region helps in that regard. Overall, we take the view that the budget must be realistic and the funding sustainable and predictable. Important steps are being taken towards that vision through WHO's investment round and the increase of the assessed contributions. We remain dedicated to decision taken at WHA in 2022, and we are considering the proposed stepwise increase up to 2031 carefully. A broader donor base is another important building block towards a healthier funding situation, and we welcome that over 30 pledges of, I think it was 59, in the investment round are from first-time voluntary contributors to WHO. In our continued assessment and analysis of the program budget leading up to PBAC and EB, we will closely follow the allocation between the 3 pillars, with a view to not weaken the efforts towards healthier populations and the strengthening of the country offices. We welcome, furthermore, the results framework, which we are currently assessing, and we would like to, at this point, suggest the addition of 2 indicators covering disability. Thank you.
Thank you, Sweden. United Kingdom, you have the floor, followed by Bulgaria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The UK would like to commend WHO Euro for the implementation of Programme Budget 22-23. We recognize the challenges faced by our region over the last biennium, including financial constraints due to high levels of earmarked funding and the underfunding of key priorities, as well as numerous emergencies. As the largest flexible donor to WHO, we are pleased to be supporting the investment round, and we echo calls for increased sustainable, predictable, and flexible funding of WHO, which we hope all donors will consider. A strong WHO is in all our interests. Flexible funding enables WHO to respond rapidly and with agility to changing health priorities. We also note the important discussions at the next governing body meetings on the increase to assess contributions, recognizing the role that ACs play in providing this flexible funding. The UK would like to thank the Secretariat for their efforts and engagement in developing the proposed programme budget for 26-27. We welcome the measures taken to enhance the transparency of its development, including the prioritisation process with a focus on country level, and we note the commonality amongst member states in priorities, as well as the link often between these priorities and the need for flexible funding. We encourage WHO to continue facilitating conversations on the programme budget and resource allocation, and ensure they reflect WHO and member state priorities. We also support the paper's emphasis on the importance of a robust monitoring system with clear indicators and benchmarks to measure success. Finally, the UK welcomes Scenario 2 of the programme budget for the Emergency Operations and Appeals, as it presents a more realistic budget and will provide accounting of WHO spending. We look forward to engaging further in the development of programme budget 26-27. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United Kingdom. Now, Bulgaria, you have the floor, to be followed by Slovenia.
Okay. Honorable Chair, distinguished Regional Director, Excellencies, Bulgaria aligns itself with the EU statement made on behalf of the EU member states. We take note of the findings of the WHO Regional Office for Europe report under the current item. Actively engaging the younger generations, the vulnerable and target groups in developing policies and strategies that directly affect them are the key lessons learned. If we manage to address them, we will make the best investment in our future sustainability. I shall outline several aspects of our support. Firstly, we support the need to strengthen primary health care and universal health coverage. We all have to build on the current achievements and, together with WHO Euro, to tailor the actions to specific country needs. Secondly, we support the need to invest in the development of a digital infrastructure that enhances data quality and availability and enables better coordination and communication between health stakeholders. Thirdly, we support the need to expand access to prevention, testing and treatment services, promote healthy lifestyles, and a focus on risk factors, supporting the areas of cancer control, mental health, tuberculosis, HIV, hepatitis, and antimicrobial resistance, and to improve health security and emergency preparedness. It is by no means certain that any actions require predictable and sustainable funding. We all are aware of the fact that is why the member states of the region contribute through the increasing country contributions adopted by decision WHA 75/8 and by supporting WHO investment round. We commend the activity of WHO Secretariat for Europe, which has remained committed to improving internal resource mobilization and by continuously building staff capacity. We have only one recommendation on the implementation of the budget 2024-2025. Allocation of program budget expenditures should be aligned with governments in view of the needs of the countries in which they operate, taking into account results and impact on specific health indicators. The expansion of country offices and the strengthening of their expertise should also be consulted with the governments. The above, combined with the appropriate monitoring of these activities, would provide the much-needed transparency and accountability of that the organization seeks. Having said that, we would like to commend the valuable support of WHO Euro for the country office in Bulgaria and to express our high appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bulgaria. Now, Slovenia, you have the floor. Will be followed by Denmark.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished Chair, Director, and esteemed colleagues, Slovenia aligns itself with the statement made on behalf of the and especially would like to echo the points made on the accountability report and the draft program budget 2027. Further to those points, we would like to thank the regional director and his team for the process for developing the next European program of work. The EPW is of importance as it will serve as the key strategic guide for our region. Slovenia supports the presented approach, including the balance between innovation and continuity, and we also highlight how important it is that this is an inclusive process involving member states and non-state actors alike. In this regard, we deeply appreciate the RD's commitment to participatory governance, which is yet another facet of your ethos of working together with the countries. We look forward to the next steps. I suppose that means the letter that our ministers should receive tomorrow. And Chair, we would also like to make some remarks on the assessment round, but I'll wait for the appropriate moment for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Slovenia. Now Denmark, you have the floor, will be followed by Germany.
Thank you, Chair, Regional Director, dear colleagues. Denmark aligns itself with the statement made on behalf of the EU and its member states. Denmark welcomes the preliminary draft program budget 2026-27, and we commend its alignment with the DPW 14 priorities. We note that the draft budget is in alignment with the aspiration to reach a level of 50% of total financing from assessed contributions. And in line with the recommendations adopted at WHA 75, Denmark will consider the proposal carefully in light of progress on key deliverables, as well as progress of other global health financial mechanisms. With global health threats on the rise, we must unite to ensure a strong WHO. As one of the top contributors of flexible voluntary funding, Denmark supports the ongoing efforts to give WHO the needed muscle to improve health across the world, and we support the launch of WHO's first investment round. At the investment round earlier this month in Berlin, the Danish government announced that we plan to pledge 70 million Danish kroner to the WHO each year from 2025 to 28. We will also continue our strong financial support to the NCD office at the regional office here in Copenhagen. This adds to our contribution of 40 million Danish kroner in 2024 to WHO Emergency Appeal for Humanitarian Assistance in Gaza, and our contribution of 10 million Danish kroner to the WHO Mpox Appeal, with a focus on the joint efforts against Mpox on the African continent, including prevention and treatment of the disease. We very much hope that the upcoming global investment round will bring us an important step forward in ensuring a strong and sustainably funded WHO. Thank you.
Thank you, Denmark. Now I will give the floor to Germany and will be followed by Ireland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany aligns itself to the EU statement. And before my statement comes, let me express our slight worry that Hans' voice is also before the reception tonight, which we are looking forward to. So what we are discussing of utmost importance, it is making WHO fit for purpose and supporting WHO that it can live up to our common expectations to implement the GPW and the EPW that remains to be discussed. So if we are not unable to equip WHO with the right financial resources, the whole prioritization process doesn't make much sense. So we are investing in lots of things, lots of debates, we will raise lots of priorities, but if we don't provide the funding to WHO, we can skip all that, and that needs to be to us all. Now, this is exactly why the Working Group on Sustainable Financing, after very long and intense debates, came to a conclusion with very, very clear recommendations that were then supported by the World Health Assembly 2 years ago by 194 member states. So by all member states sitting in this room now, they all supported the key recommendations of that working group. And we've seen the nice picture, Imre, of the final moment of the working group. Thanks for that. It had two major pillars. The first being that there should be, and we need, a stepwise increase in the assessed contributions to reach a level of 50% latest by 2030, 2031 of the base segment. And indeed, we want to walk the talk with all of you together. We stand ready to this commitment, and we believe this increase must happen in order to make WHO fit for purpose and what is to be expected in the future. Now, the second major pillar was that we also need to address the voluntary contributions and make them more flexible, predictable, and by holding an investment round, which we've done. We brought the investment round, at least the European part, to the World Health Summit. Hans, you played a key role, and thanks to you and your entire team, it was a huge success in the European region. And again, the thanks of Chancellor Scholz for your strong commitment. Are these recommendations still valid today, the AC increase and the investment round? Yes, they are more than ever before. Why is that? Well, because WHO is, and the bad news is, will be facing severe financial challenges in the near future. Some of WHO's traditional donors face severe fiscal challenges. WHO has seen major amounts floating to WHO due to the COVID crisis, which obviously now go down with potentially structural challenges that we will see in headquarters and abroad. And we've heard from WHO Euro right now that WHO Euro is severely vulnerable financially. So this all calls for, from our point of view, the right decisions and implementing those two pillars, in particular addressing the donor base of WHO by two ways. Plus, we need to recognize a major concern that I'd like to raise. 50% of the voluntary contributions that fund WHO Euro come from only 3 donors. And only one of them is a member state from our region. Another one is a member state from another region, a strong transatlantic partner, and we are all aware of the challenges that might come up. So we obviously need to be very addressing this. The AC increase is the fairest and most equitable way of increasing the donor base, but also the investment round is a possibility for all of us to contribute. It's great that 16 donors have already pledged, but that means in a region where we are 53, that 37, I hope I'm counting right, could still increase their involvement, and we call on all of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Germany. Now, Ireland, you have the floor.
Thank you. Honourable Chair, Regional Director, distinguished colleagues. Ireland aligns with the statement delivered by Hungary on behalf of the European Union. I am delighted to have this opportunity to reiterate Ireland's continued support for the essential work of WHO Regional Office for Europe and its central role in our regional health architecture. The WHO needs to have security and flexibility of funding to ensure it can plan and respond effectively to regional and global health issues, and to ensure we can prepare for the future through innovative measures such as those we discussed this week. Ireland has substantially increased and restructured its funding to the WHO to ensure that these needs are met. In recent years, we have seen clearly the benefits and necessities of regional and global cooperation through WHO. The WHO has shown leadership throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and since then in the protection of health for all, especially those furthest behind. The WHO has also been instrumental in the containment of the Ebola outbreak last year in Uganda and the current Mpox outbreak. It is a significant, important player in protecting the health of civilians trapped by conflict in Ukraine, Sudan, Gaza, Lebanon, and many other locations around the world. Ireland recognises the increasing demands on the WHO, and we are deeply committed to ensuring there is a more sustainable financing base in place to meet these demands. In the past year, the Irish Government has taken a series of steps to increase the volume and predictability of Ireland's funding for the WHO. As a result, we have tripled our voluntary contributions since the pre-pandemic period and accelerated the planned increases to our membership base contribution. I am delighted to announce that at least 30 million in financing from Ireland for the period of 2025 to 2028. And recognising the scale of investment needed to protect health and well-being for all, Ireland will continue to explore ways to increase this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ireland. As there are no more member states asking for the floor, I will now give the floor to international partners. If there are any which wish to speak, please raise your nameplate. I don't see any. Okay. The Secretariat received no request for the moment from the non-state actors to take the floor. So in this situation, I will now give the floor to the regional director to provide any responses to your statements. Please.
Thank you very much, Executive President. If it's fine with your permission, I would give to Corinne to give a first salvo, and then I will come in, and maybe also after you, Imre, right? Because some very, very substantial points were raised here, so I think it's good to go a little bit into detail, because we are coming really to the crux of the issue, right, on a prioritization exercise. But if it's not funded, then what are we indeed talking about? So I think this is the time to be, yes, really go to the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, Hans. So thank you to all of you for your engagement tonight. It's getting a little bit late, but still you are very engaged in the discussion on program budget matter, your very valuable comments, your words of support, and the words of support for WHO and WHO Europe, acknowledging also the relevance of WHO in country and in the region and at global level. Thank you very much for that. You mentioned several things. So one is, of course, the pockets of poverty and the challenge we are facing in financing some key areas of work. And this, of course, is coming with a lack of flexibility of funding that we have mentioning and we are all aware about. And it leads to the misalignment that we are facing now. It's also limiting our capacity to adjust when there is emerging new needs in countries, and this lack of flexibility has an impact on the way we work and the way we deliver our work. And of course, this leads to the sustainable financing and the sustainable financing of the key priorities. And as it was very well articulated, the increase of assets contribution, which of course will give us a level of sustainability, we will be able to plan, we will be able also to secure stuff. So it's coming with really with a lot of plus for not the Secretariat, but for the work we will be able to deliver at country level and at regional level. So this is one part. And the other part, of course, is the investment round. We are going to talk about it in a moment. But thanks for your calls and the additional supports that you have been mentioning. This lack of flexibility, as we are moving towards EPW2 and Programme Budget 26-27, the flexibility will be needed so to allow us this 30% innovation we have been talking, Hans has mentioned, and the 70% continuity. We need to have the predictable financing to do that. So again, this will be an essential part. We are committed to accountability, transparency, efficiency. You have seen the work that has been done with the accountability report, the various reports that are provided and given to you. Thank you for your comments, also on maybe less text and more tables. So we are very open also to receive comments on how we can make our reports better. So we are very committed, as you have seen, in Euro and WHO to accountability, transparency, efficiency. But we are in your hands in terms of providing the flexible resources that are needed. So with that, Imre, is there anything you want to mention on PB 26-27?
Yes. You're looking, so I should be short. Yeah, I understand. Okay, I just, first, I really would like to thank also for, I think, positive comments and support for the program budget document, the draft program budget document, and for the underlying AC increase, and I think it's as everybody said, it's quite crucial to us. There were three elements when we discussed the AC increase that we need to do. You probably remember that we had some key performance indicators underlying the AC increase, and we're going to report on them in January when we are presenting how we're doing in the financing and implementation of program budget 24-25. So the KPIs underlying that are, we're going to report on that. There are two other elements which were sort of the other side of the coin of the AC increase. One was the Secretariat Implementation Plan, which we are very close to 100% implementation, and we will report on that as well. And then there's the Agile Member State working group work that is led by Australia, which I think is also progressing really well. So my reading is that that most of the conditionalities that were laid out for the next AC increase are being fulfilled, but we will report on them, and I think that could be an important conversation when we move to the PBAC before the Executive Board. The second element is about reporting in general, and I understand that we need to simplify, and we will put our heads together and find a way to do that, because there's this constant tension between providing easy information and yet sufficient details. And we need to find a way to do that, and I heard you loud and clear. On Sweden's proposal for the disability indicators, please let us know, and we will. We are very open, and we're very happy to receive them, and obviously will be presented as part of the program budget package going into the next version of the program budget. And lastly, I would like to reflect on Russia's request from the previous round of discussions. So this is our continuous discussion already now. You may know that as part of that consultation or discussion, we have convened a deep dive on WHO's expenditures a couple of months ago in headquarters. And we will also look into how we can provide the information that you are requesting. There's one particular issue that we have to somehow wrap our hands around, and that is that some of the information that you're requesting will only be available when we do operational planning. So when the budget is approved, then we break it down to actual further plans. And if we wanted to provide the information early on, then it means operational planning would have to be brought in advance or forward to basically 2.5 years before the biennium is starting. So I think that's something that we need to look into, but we keep on the see how can we reach something that is maybe not perfect what you are asking for, but maybe would satisfy the need that has come up. Thank you.
Number of points to add. So first and foremost, Björn, on my voice, I think it's a sign that my Hans talks are too long. So it's a good, I will take this into account for next year. So first and foremost, thank you, Imre, for showing this picture of the working group on financial sustainability. I think we should always remember this. I mean, this was a big step. I think Dr. Tedros also needs to be commended for this, because this is something historically is a big thing. Now it's to materialize in, of course, a difficult climate. This is a fact. But I was very impressed in Berlin at the signature event of the investment round. And thank you again, dear Björn, to your Chancellor, to Professor Karl Lauterbach, also to the Prime Minister of Norway, who spoke virtually, and to Frans, who also was a co-host. So there were a whole number of member states. I mean, it was mentioned here. Denmark, of course, was mentioning, and then Luxembourg told this was historically, and I will not say more because I don't want to forget other countries. but several countries did step forward. So that was very encouraging. Then I would like to make an appeal also that if there is fully flexible funding to WHO, there is a modus operandi that Germany has been following, also the Netherlands, that there is a percentage earmarked for the WHO European region. I don't see anything contradictory over there. We're still one WHO, but I think this is somehow logically that from a European donor, if there is a chunk of flexible funding to WHO in the big pot, that a percentage goes to the European region, as we saw that there are very concrete and many needs also in the WHO European region. Now, what I'm particularly concerned indeed is on the pocket of poverty for the program on non-communicable diseases. We're always telling this is the main cause of mortality and morbidity, but it's true that since the closure of the GDO office in Moscow, we have been working very hard in line with the resolution of the special session to ensure continuation. And again, I express appreciation to all the countries which are stepping forward, and several are specifying that they are providing financing, but to come up to the total amount, we are not there yet for the next biennia. So this is definitely a serious pocket of poverty. Again, on the positive side, I really have to thank all the member states which are financing our GDOs. Because without these GDOs, I mean, we would be in some other big problem, really. And I include here also the quality of care office is not a GDO, but it's a very important part. Because these are our centers of excellence. I mean, you know them and you know the people. So these are really very, very important. Now, on, you're absolutely right, Björn. We do a lot of work then on this. And this is also a trend, right? Be it in the Regional Committee or at the World Health Assembly, there is a proliferation of resolutions, but then how many man and woman power are we attributing to that one, and how many funding? So there's a bit of euphoria that then the resolution is there, but what does it mean in reality? Now, still, I believe that the meticulous process we have set out for the EPW2 should be followed independent of the funding. But the novelty here, I would like to see, this is really my ambition, is what I call a modular approach. Because this is never happening. We are prioritizing. But actually, it's not prioritizing. If you look to G14 or look to other documents, I mean, it's comprehensive. It's a strong document, but it does not tell if so much funding, we member states would like to go this funding to those activities. And I think that is the nut we have to crack, because indeed we don't know what will happen next week in elections in some big countries. We know that a lot of funding goes to defense, to the fact that people have trouble with cost of living. So even in optimistic scenario, it will be a tough situation. But then where we need joint accountability is from the member state to say, listen, Hans, if there is so much funding available, we would like that you put it in the NCDs or in the immunization, because otherwise we spread ourselves so thin that it becomes difficult to provide sound evidence base as a normative organization and also to be operational, because this is the which is difficult to crack, right? WHO is a normative organization, sure, but there are quite some countries which are telling we would like WHO also in right, a number of countries to remain operational in order to leave no one behind, if no other organization is stepping forward. So two messages. One is a sincere message of appreciation to many countries which are stepping forward, and this is to be acknowledged, and we acknowledge this. And the second one is, once that the minister receive, which is now becoming a famous letter, right, to, and which is good, to have a trusted person from your side for EPW2 development to help us to kind of prioritize. It doesn't mean to say we do this and that not, but a kind of a evolution. because ultimately, at least from Euro, we are still quite optimistic about the investment round, and I think we should really go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let us move to the second segment of the agenda item on the investment round. For that, I will give the floor again to Dr. Corin Capuano. Please, Corin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So, yes, let's turn now to the investment round. I didn't put the picture that Imre has, that's a pity, but you all have it in mind. So you know that for many years, member states from the European region have championed the WHO sustainable financing. Here, what we would like to do is to take stock of the progress of the WHO investment round to date. We would also like to recognize and celebrate the leadership role of Euro member states until now, and call for this positive dynamic to continue until G20 Leaders Summit in November and beyond. You will recall the financial target to deliver the 14th General Programme of Work that was estimated at 7 billion of voluntary contribution to be mobilized, and that is in addition to the assessed contribution. We would like to take this opportunity to convey our appreciation to the three co-hosts of the WHO investment round in the European region, France, Germany, and Norway. Several European region member states and partners have announced their pledges as part of the WHO investment round at different events, including during the World Health Assembly in May 2024, and more recently, during a signature event that was mentioned by Hans, organized during the World Health Summit in Berlin and attended by Chancellor Scholz. And yesterday, additional member states committed during the first day of the regional committee. So we would like to recognize all members and partners who have already pledged for their leadership and take a moment to go through the different pledges announced so far from the region: Denmark, Estonia, the European Union, Finland, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Latvia, Luxembourg, Malta, Montenegro, the Netherlands, North Macedonia, Norway, Slovenia, Turkey. Thus far, we have now reached a total of 16 pledges from the European region, totaling 814.5 million. This is a sizable amount, and we hope it will continue to grow in coming weeks. And I think this probably deserves a round of applause for your commitment. Thank you. We are definitely stronger as Secretariat and as one WHO. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And thank to all of you for these very fruitful discussions. Now, if there are any member states to wish to take the floor, I am now opening for discussions. Please write your nameplate. I see Slovenia. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm only breaking the ice. So, as I've announced earlier, I would also like to make some remarks in regards to the investment round. And with that, Slovenia reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the WHO and its important work. The investment round is a key innovation that will secure more predictable and sustainable funding for the organization. And we would like to thank all the countries who are taking part in this endeavor. We're proud to contribute over €1 million in voluntary contributions, partly through the investment round, as was presented, partly to the emergency appeal for Ukraine, and also by hosting the next meeting of the Small Countries Initiative and a meeting on health equity, both to take place in 2025. Of course, these contributions do not exclude potential future funding from Slovenia in our continued support of WHO as the central global health institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Slovenia. Seems like no other member states like to take the floor. Now we'd like to give the floor to the international partners. If there is some which wish to take the floor, please raise your nameplate. I don't see any. The Secretariat received no request from the non-state actors to take the floor. If Corinne likes to add something. Okay, if the regional director likes to add something. Yeah, if. So we had only Slovenia statement. If you like to add something in addition, if not.
Maybe a short word, Madam Executive
Please.
President, not to repeat that I expressed appreciation. That I want to stress that it's a joint accountability. So we're also trying to do our job, right? And I would like to give one example here, where I would like to thank particularly two of my senior advisors, Anne-Marie Warning and Hans Strutsen, who worked very closely with me on the preparation of the opening of the WHO enabling hub in Istanbul. Because this was also to circle the square, basically, to come into the office with quite some debt and an increasing demand. So we prepared this very meticulously. Was a very tough job to do. For me, it was much more easy not to do it. It was a lot of sleepless nights. I mean, you know how it is in the Ministry of Health. You want to make a change, there's a lot of resistance. But we did it with a lot of attention to the staff, to the families. If people felt, for particular reasons, hesitant to move, we tried to find other possibilities. And even people very closely to me were not sure whether this was the right move. But we did it evidence-based and also with legal support. And now we're very, very proud of it, of the enabling hub, which also helped to have the office agile and more also on a solid operational and financial footing. So I just wanted to put this forward and thank also URSA here, the staff association, who worked very closely with us on this move. So we are very, very open-minded to find different ways to get financially sustainable, because I was proudly telling yesterday that for 2 consecutive biennia we had a clean financial balance sheet, but I'm also telling you that for the 3rd biennium this will be a tough nut to crack. We're very, very committed, but we don't know indeed what's happening in the next weeks. So we have to think of different scenarios. Hence, again, very important that we go together through this consultative process of the EPW2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Regional Director. With that, we conclude our discussion under agenda item 7. Oh, Germany. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
You have
I was
the floor.
tempted to say something because there were not too many member states now taking the floor on the investment round, and since also Germany played a big role in the creation of this idea and where we currently are, I thought I'd bring in our thoughts again. As was announced and as you saw here, Germany commits 240 million voluntary contributions for the time frame of the GPW. At least this is what Chancellor Scholz said. So there is potentially even room for more. It's very clear that our resources for humanitarian action are not all included, so they will come on top. We believe that the investment round has already served as well, despite the fact that there is still room for improvement, so we need more countries to contribute. What was really working well, that also non-state actors have contributed quite a bit during the World Health Summit. We've seen lots of foundations that have so far not provided funding to WHO, providing funding on a purely flexible manner. So that's certainly a thing that went very well. We believe it's important to evaluate the investment round after it's been done in order to see where we can learn more. I see 2 major points where we, I think, can get better. I think that WHO needs to explain even better than it does currently where its comparative advantage is, in particular for countries of our region to some extent. We are very good in explaining what we achieve in many developing countries, but I think more communication, especially also from headquarters, needs to come out where where WHO is essential for us. I think we all know, but it's important to have those communications. And the other point that is true in the German setting, where we can learn from actors like Gavi or the Global Fund, they are very, very good in lobbying with the essential parliamentarians. And I think there is room for improvement, at least in the country that I know best, but I'm sure it's going to be the same in other countries, where also WHO needs to do even more outreach, because often the budgetary lines are obviously agreed and freed by the parliamentarians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. Do you like to?
Actually, I'm
reply?
inspired. If
Okay.
Bjorn intervenes 2 times, I feel also inspired to intervene 2 times. So actually, to tell Bjorn that I fully agree, and we had the plans 20 and 21 January, also with your support, and some of you, 2 half days to convene a number of member states to think through those issues, which we did actually, and you were included, Nora, also from Switzerland at that time, when I became regional director in March 2020 on those things, to become a little bit more smart indeed, in approaching the right people at the right time, and you include here the parliaments, which is a point very, very well taken, absolutely, and also how to better communicate our comparative advantage. This is the 20 and 21 January that we try to do, and this is key. What I often say, when a minister and her or his delegation comes to Copenhagen, and after 1 day, they're quite impressed with the whole portfolio that we are offering. Or when we are working, like in Belgium's case, together for 6 months, or with Hungary, right, on an EU presidency. But then I'm thinking, it shouldn't take 6 months of collaborative work with a particular country to be convincing of the comparative advantage of WHO. So how do we make it clear in the first 100 days of a minister, a new minister, that this is what WHO Euro is doing in synergy with the European Commission, obviously, with the OECD, with the ECDC, with the Eurasia Economic Commission, the CIS Council, so in partnership. So your points are very well taken, and I take advantage here also to give some credit to our team of resource mobilization, who is behind me, who actually did tap into some new funding opportunities, and which is very, very active. But then again, several of those are outside the region. And that's a good point for the region to become self-sustainable. Thank you for your intervention, but really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, dear Regional Director. I think now we can conclude our agenda item 7. As we have come to the end of the session for today, I would like now to give the floor to those delegations that requested to exercise their right of reply earlier in the day, or would like to make such requests now. I would like to ask delegations to be as brief as possible in delivering the rights of reply, taking into account that at this meeting, interventions themselves are limited to 3 minutes. If delegation could kindly interpret the word brief relative to time allotted for intervention themselves, it will be very greatly appreciated. If there are subsequent requests by delegations for additional spoken rights of reply concerning the same matters as previous replies, may I kindly request delegations to limit such spoken statement to 30 seconds or less. Again, I hope that delegations will understand that these requests are made in our common interest in the good order of our procedures. Now I will give the floor to Hungary on behalf of the European Union.
Thank you very much, Chair. We wish to exercise our right of reply on behalf of the European Union and its member state. The direct and indirect health impacts of Russia's illegal and unjustified aggression against Ukraine is of utmost concern. The war has national, regional, and global consequences on health. The war continues to rage to the detriment of the health, not only by those directly affected by violence, but of people far beyond Europe. The exacerbation of any already significant global food security crisis, as well as the risk of radiological, biological, and chemical events and hazards, are some of the wider than regional health and humanitarian impacts resulting from the Russian Federation aggression against Ukraine. The extensive health response in host and refugee receiving countries is another example of the far-reaching effects of this unprovoked, unjustified and illegal war of aggression, which we condemn in the strongest possible terms. We call on the Russian Federation to immediately cease its hostilities, including attacks on healthcare facilities and health workers. As such, it is without a doubt justified that these issues be addressed by the WHO European region member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hungary. I see Russian Federation is asking for the right of reply. Please, if you possible, to stay in 30 seconds. 3 minutes? Okay, sorry, 3 minutes. Please, Russian Federation.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Ну, я не буду повторять вчерашнее выступление. Я думаю, что все помнят эти тезисы, да, к вопросу о всесторонних эффектах специальной военной операции России, основанной на праве на самооборону в соответствии с 51 статьей Устава ООН. Расскажу о том, что за 2022 и 2023 годы Россия восстановила и построила в новых регионах более 190 объектов здравоохранения. 234 объекта сегодня модернизируются. Созданы и оснащены 3 региональных сосудистых центра. 1 первичное сосудистое отделение. Оснащено 4 онкологических диспансера. В 2023 году закуплено и поставлено новые субъекты Российской Федерации 1500 медицинских изделий. Мы обновили все машины скорой помощи. В новых субъектах открыто более 2000 аптек. Внедряем передовой российский опыт фельдшерско-акушерских пунктов для того, чтобы люди могли получить медицинскую помощь и лекарственные препараты в одном месте. Для контроля качества лекарственных препаратов открыта специальная лаборатория в Донецке. Во всех новых субъектах Российской Федерации внедрен расширенный неонатальный скрининг. Более 65% всех новорожденных охвачены диагностикой на более чем 40 заболеваний. Не во всех странах ЕС есть такие показатели. Граждане новых субъектов Российской Федерации обеспечены бесплатным лекарственными препаратами для лечения ВИЧ и туберкулеза. Новые субъекты Российской Федерации включены в национальный проект «Санитарный щит», направленный на развитие устойчивой системы защиты населения от биологических и санитарно-эпидемиологических угроз. Для тех, кто говорит только о негативных факторах, давайте будем вспоминать о здравоохранении, ради которого мы здесь сегодня собрались, а не разговаривать о первопричинах данного кризиса. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Russian Federation, for staying in time. I see Ukraine, please, as short as possible.
I'll be very short. As we all know, Ukraine lie in every the award. This preparing speech is no word with true. Russia destroyed more than 200 hospitals in my country. Damaged more than 2,000 medical facilities and absolutely destroyed more than 200. We not ask you go to Ukraine. You are terrorist, aggressor, occupant, and lie. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Russian Federation again for the right of reply, please. Please. 30 seconds this time.
Нацистский режим Киева ежедневно наносит удары ракетами и беспилотниками по российским регионам: Белгородской, Брянской, Курской, Ростовской, Воронежской областям. прошлом году на улице, на которой я живу, взорвался украинский беспилотник. Он взорвался напротив роддома. Эта атака никогда не была занесена ни в ВОЗовскую систему, не отражена ни в новостях Европейского Союза. Всем наплевать на то, что Украина делает с российскими гражданами.
I see Ukraine again. Please, 30 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds. You start this war and you can finish this war. Take out from my country and this war will finish.
So now I will stop this rights of replies, and because it was a very long, but I'm pretty sure that all of us are the feeling that all in all was very fruitful and successful day. Let me pass the floor to Gabrielle for some household messages before we adjourn for the day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Madam Chair has said, this concludes. With regard to tomorrow, we start promptly at 9 a.m. with our technical programme. So we do ask all colleagues to be with us promptly for a full day tomorrow, focused on our technical items. This evening, we have a wonderful reception hosted by our regional director. There will be buses from the venue here from 6:15 onwards, so in just a few moments' time. And then there will be buses from the venue to hotels later in the evening. As yesterday, please ensure that you have your badges with you so that that will assist you with entry to the venue, but please do leave your headsets here. And I wish you a very enjoyable evening, a wonderful reception hosted by our recently re-elected regional director. And thank you very much to everyone for today and also for bringing us back on schedule. Thank you.